He hollowed out a large log and sealed all the valuables inside. He made the sign of the cross and cast it into a river. He prayed, and the log traveled to the shore of Roves. When he returned, he found it waiting for him there. Saint David was born around 1490 in Gardenitsa of Phiotis. His father was a virtuous priest. He filled the child's soul with deep faith and piety toward God. When he was 3 years old, the honorable forerunner appeared to him. The saint led him to a nearby church. He remained there for 6 days, standing and barefoot before the icon. He learned to love prayer and quietude from a very young age. In his adolescence, he asked his parents' permission. He departed to find a spiritual father and spiritual experiences. He learned about the hieromonk Akakios. He was a man of virtue and wisdom with the reputation of a mature spiritual guide. He went to him and asked to be placed under his obedience. Akakios received him with joy. He gave him the monastic schema, and David became an exemplary monk. He showed perfect obedience with a spirit of humility. He practiced unceasing prayer, and the signs of his spiritual progress quickly appeared. He followed his elder to Mount Ossa and later to Mount Athos. Akakios was elected metropolitan of Arta and Navpaktos. He called David to him and ordained him a presbyter. Subsequently, he appointed him abbot of the monastery of Varnakova. David tried to implement monastic principles in his new position. However, those under his obedience were not willing to follow him. Therefore, he left and settled on Mount Styri near Parnassus. He lived in difficult times under Turkish bondage. He was falsely accused of hiding an escaped slave in his hermitage. The Turks arrested him and subjected him to terrible tortures. He endured them with great patience and heroism. They hung him by his hands, and his body was severely beaten. After a long time, he was freed thanks to the ransom of pious Christians. He decided to change his place of asceticism. He headed toward the regions of the Euboean Gulf. In Atalanti, he asked a boatman to take him across to northern Euboea. The boatman despised him and refused because of his poor appearance. The saint removed his worn cassock. He spread it upon the sea and made the sign of the cross. He prayed to the Lord and stepped onto the cassock. Then the miracle occurred and he began to travel upon the waters. The cassock brought him to the shore of Roves. The boatman watched, shaken and repentant. The saint entered the remarkable forest above Roves. David practiced asceticism in a cave in the high mountains of Euboea. His sanctity became known to the shepherds and the surrounding villages. He decided to establish a monastery that would become a refuge for slaves. He traveled to Russia to collect money and gifts. There, the Orthodox Christians offered him a rich treasure for the monastery. He hollowed out a large log and sealed all the valuables inside. He made the sign of the cross and cast it into a river. He prayed, and the log traveled to the shore of Roves. When he returned, he found it waiting for him there. The inhabitants tried to open it with axes without success. Their tools bent or broke on the miraculous wood. When he ascended the mountain, he saw that they had begun to build elsewhere. They feared they would not find water at the summit he had indicated. He prayed fervently and struck the rock with his staff. The next day, abundant water sprang from the rock. Thus, the monastery of the Transfiguration of the Savior was built. The saint foresaw his death and gave his final spiritual counsels. He delivered his soul to Christ on the 1st of November. His tomb and his sacred relics perform many miracles.